Hi everyone, this is Ethan from Coding Pals, and today we'll be looking at CCC 2019 J1 winning score, and then I'll be showing you the Java solution. You record all of the scoring activity at a basketball game. Points are scored by a 3-point shot, a 2-point field goal, or a 1-point free throw. You know the number of each of these types of scoring for the two teams, the apples and the bananas. Your job is to determine which team won or if the game ended in a tie. The first 3 lines of input describe the scoring of the apples, and the next 3 lines of input describe the scoring of the bananas. For each team, the first line contains the number of successful 3-point shots, the second line contains the number of successful 2-point field goals, and the third line contains the number of successful 1-point free throws. Each number will be an integer between 0 and 100 inclusive. The output will be a single character. If the apples scored more points than the bananas, output A. If the bananas scored more points than the apples, output B. Otherwise, output T to indicate a tie. So basically, in this problem, we want to calculate the total number of points that each team has, apples and bananas, based on the inputs that are given. And then after we have calculated the total amount of points for each team, then we can determine whether apple has more points than bananas, in which case we'll output A, or if bananas scored more points than apples, and then we'll output B, or if the points are equal, then we would output T. So let's begin our solution. So I already have a Java file created here in IntelliJ, and the first thing we want to do is set up the inputs. So we want to import java.util.scanner. That will allow us to take inputs in our program, and then we want to set up our main function. And then we want to create a scanner, and we'll name it input. So, and system.in. And so these 3 steps that I just did are steps that you're going to have to do every time you do one of these CCC problems, because you always need to input something, and you always need a main function. So, and then next, so there's 6 lines of input, and each of them are all integers. So the first line of input is the number of 3-point shots made by apples. So we'll name it 3-point A equals, because it's an integer, so it would be input.nextInt. And then the second input would be the number of 2-point shots made by A. And again, it's an integer, so it would be input.nextInt. And then finally, it would be 1-point A input.nextInt again. Now the fourth line of input is the total number of 3-point shots made by bananas. So we'll name it 3-point B. And it's still an integer, so nextInt. And then 2 points for bananas. And then finally, number of 1-point shots made by banana. Still input.nextInt. Now we want to calculate the total number of points scored by each team. So for apples, we want to create an int score A, so that would be the score of apples. And so we would calculate this by looking at the number of 3-point shots made, which is the first input. So number of 3-point A, but because each of these are worth 3 points, then we'll multiply it by 3. And then we'll add this to the number of 2-point A, which is the number of 2-point shots made by apples, and each of these shots are worth 2 points, so we'll multiply it by 2. And then finally, we have 1 point A. And because each of these shots are only worth 1 point, then we don't need to multiply it by anything, because it's already multiplying by 1. And then we need to calculate the score of bananas. So we'll name it score B. And we do the same thing as we did for score A. So we have the number of 3-point shots made by bananas, and we multiply it by 3 because it's worth 3 points. And then we have the number of 2-point shots made by bananas, 2-point B, and again we multiply it by 2 because it's worth 2 points. And then finally 1-point B, and we don't have to multiply it by anything because it's only worth 1 point. And now, if we look at the problem, for our output, we need to compare the two scores and see which one is larger, or if they're equal. So then now, because if one condition is true, we output something, and if another condition is true, then we output something else. So we need if statements. So if score A is larger than score B, so if A has more points than B, then A wins, and if A wins, we want to output A. So system.out.println A. Or else if score A is not larger than score B, and if score B is larger than score A, then that means that B has more points than A. Bananas has more points than apples, and so we want to output system.out.println B. And finally, if neither of these are true, then if A is not larger than B, if score A is not larger than score B, and score B is not larger than score A, then it must mean that they're equal. So if they're equal, it means that it's a tie. So we would output system.out.println T to indicate a tie. And that should be our solution. So if we copy this and we click Submit Solution, select Java 8, and we will just copy our solution into here and then submit. And as you can see here, we got 15 out of 15, which means we have successfully done this question, and that's it for the solution.